Trigger warning, the following video contains graphic depictions of abuse by police officers and explicit content. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, okay. Welcome back, everyone. So, this is going on again about chronic pain and the fiasco that is our health system now. It's getting really, really, really bad. And actually, I talked to a psychiatrist in person that is affected by all this, and I told him about this thing that happened that hit news headlines, actually. So it's good that something like this actually hit news headlines because in the chronic pain community, we've seen this happen repeated times, and news organizations won't cover it. This time they actually covered it. And the thing that's irritating is that people will try to make excuses, like put all the culpability on the police or say we don't know the whole situation. And to me, that's really irrelevant. But talking to this psychiatrist in person, he told me he was aware of this situation and that actually there's probably a lot more, like even within the chronic pain community of hearing about it, he said there's probably a lot more situations than you even know of, and that it's actually getting worse, what I'm about to show you. Like this goes beyond what even us in the chronic pain community, from like the Doctor Patient Forum, Don't Punish Pain, even what we're aware of. There's more examples of this that we're aware of. Oh dear. So I had a lot to say on this. I'm gonna show you the original clip first of I believe it was a combination, or it could have just been the body cams, but combination possibly of like this woman had two kids. I think they recorded it with their cell phones, and then body cams from the police officers. And then I have a video where a guy is commenting on it, and he says the whole system has failed this woman. And I absolutely agree with him. I think the whole system has failed a lot of patients when it comes to healthcare and what it's done. Like not too long ago, I posted a video of a woman on my Facebook, on different social media, of a woman with sickle cell disease. Pretty painful disease, very, very painful. And she was in the hospital, and the hospital discharged her. She's begging and pleading, I need help, something's wrong, I'm sick. She had been to like multiple hospitals. The police came to kick her out for trespassing. And she went home, and I think like a week or at the end of the month, she had died because she did not get the medical treatment that she needed. And, people came out and said, well, we don't know the full story. We don't know. And you know what? It's really irrelevant. I mean, the ER is the one place that you can go that'll treat you regardless of your social class. It doesn't matter if you're homeless. If you need emergency medical care, the ER is where you go. It doesn't matter if we send hardened criminals to the ER for medical treatment. So even if she was, being unreasonable or whatever you think the story is that you don't know, well, they can knock her out and they can treat her, and then when she's revived, kick her out. I mean, there are ways to deal with it. They can strap her to the bed. They can knock her out. There's a lot of things they can do. It's not the first time that a hospital or an ER has ever had a patient that was hard to work with or deal with. But I don't think that's even the case. This woman was erratic because she was sick and dying. And I think most people in a situation where they feel like they're dying are probably going to be pretty erratic when they can't get emergency medical help because they feel like they're dying. That's probably a pretty normal response for most people. To say that that's not a normal response, and I got a video on that because that is something a psychologist did put forward that I do want to discuss, because I find that deeply, deeply unethical. Just absolutely absurd to say that to someone, that like, no, you shouldn't have to fight for your own life. Like, if the people who do that, they're mentally ill. Are you fucking kidding me? You got to be fucking kidding me. And going on to say, oh, you should use cognitive behavioral therapy because, like lashing out against somebody who's trying to kill you, that's just a sign of bad mental health. It's bad behavior. Huh? What? But that's a different video. We're going to talk about this lady who went to the hospital. So there's the second video where a guy comments on it, gives you his 2 cents, and then I want to get into it because there's two sort of thought. Well, there's three thoughts. There's one that the police are culpable. There's one that the hospital is culpable, and then there's my position, which other people have as well, that both the police and the hospital are both culpable for what happened to this woman. And I want to talk about that. So I'm making a video. This cannot go silent. This cannot be. We can't sweep this under the rug. This is the stuff I'm trying to make people aware of. Like, one of the things is I'm not just doing this for me. I'm not just doing this for the chronic pain patients I know. I'm doing it because I don't want it to affect you. I don't want it to become the norm. No one should have to go through this. No one. These are not things you would expect to see out of a Western nation, and it's something we don't really even see all that often in second world countries. The only countries that you would really expect to see this is a third world country with a collapsed government. So I'm going to go ahead and show the video right now.
They want you gone. I'm talking. I understand you say you got some problems going on. You're going to have to find a way to get out of here, okay? I don't want this to turn into a situation where you have to go to jail.
Shattered my ankle and I had a stroke.
Well, if the medical professionals have saw you and discharged you,
they won't.
I got nothing to do with that then, but you got to get going.
I can't even get down here.
So you're saying that you're going to go to jail. Well, what's going to happen is you're going to have to roll this off the property.
It's the hospital's wheelchair.
Well, you're going to have to get up and figure out a way to get going.
I can't. Please don't leave me this way. I don't want to go to jail.
Get up and get moving then. Corey Bravo, you had a wagon sitting over there. Jail. Confirm.
All right, young lady.
Oh no!
You need to step up.
I can't.
Yeah, you have to.
Pull me back. I can't. Oh my God. Oh my God.
You're going to have to get up there because we're going to have to physically put you up there if not.
Oh my God. I can't. You're going to break me.
Yes, ma'am, you're going to have to get
My
in there.
ankle. I can't breathe.
You've been medically cleared, ma'am. This is not going to work. So we need you to help us.
My ankle. I'm going to pass out.
No, stop. Okay, it's not working. Okay, just stop. You've been medically cleared, so we know better.
Oh my God.
Walk.
Oh my God.
Get in the daggone.
Okay.
Oh my God. Jesus, Lord, Mary, goats. Now you're starting to piss me off. Get up.
Okay, give me up.
This is all a act. She has been discharged.
No, I haven't.
This is the Lord's. Listen to me. This is the Lord's day. All I want to do is give me some coffee and some oatmeal. I'm not going to deal with your mess this morning. We've already spent too much time on you. You're going to get up here in this van and you're going to go to jail. We're done with this.
I'm going to pass out.
You're not going to pass out. We'll go and get in there and pass out. We'll be done with it. Because this is all an act. You're not going back in the hospital. We're not taking you back. You've been kicked out of 2 hospitals.
Please.
What do you need your purse for?
My inhaler.
It's not in there.
You know an inhaler in your purse.
You guys can't do this to me. Oh my God, dear Lord.
When you're about to happen, you're about to get some more charges. That's what's about to happen.
Out of my head.
Well, the hospital already said they ain't taking you back. You got what?
I got you.
Don't you dare fucking throw yourself on the ground.
Oh my God. I'm going to die.
It's not going to die.
My problem with me is that I know it's all an act.
Oh, well, we all know that.
Don't have an inhaler in your purse, ma'am.
This is your inhaler. The medicine is missing.
Get a stretcher.
Get a stretcher.
Yeah.
Why we need a stretcher?
I can't breathe. Oh my God.
You do not have an inhaler. Right there.
Please hurry.
Ma'am, you're not getting a stretcher.
I'm going to die.
The hospital discharged you. They said everything was fine with you.
No,
we found it.
Please set me up.
You got yourself down there. We set you up like 10 fucking times. Just stay on the other side of the river. Uniform's all nasty from her. You want a cigarette?
No. Please set me up.
When you get out to jail, you better not pull this stunt. Because they don't play around out there.
Doctor. Doctor. Oh my God.
I'm gonna send a shit on me after I walk up.
I was kind of thinking just leave her on the sidewalk and I'll white blanket over and everybody can go about their day.
But she's already got a warrant on her now. Disorderly. Impeding the sidewalk.
I'm going to have to go. Please give me a stretcher.
You about to get an extra charge for this sort of conduct. You about to get anything I can think of.
Impeding the sidewalk.
I'm going to
You
have
about to
to
get anything
go.
I can think of. There's no stretcher for you.
Yes, it is. I'm sick. Oh my God. You guys are going to let me die. Please set me up. Sir, please. You're going to kill me. Please. I beg you.
Stand up.
My
Walk.
leg.
We know you can walk. Now stop.
Oh no. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh. Whoa. Okay. No, shut up.
You can set yourself up.
They're going to kill me. I can't breathe. I can't.
What's that?
Set me up.
You pulled yourself to...
Set me up. Oh my God.
Scoot back towards me.
Pull me.
car? I'm sorry, I ain't doing
Okay. You guys
You're fine back there. Stop it.
take me to the hospital.
with you today. You're fine.
Stop and pull me up. I can't breathe. Oh my God. We kill me.
Just lift yourself up.
I can't.
Hey, are you up? I don't know. She's not responding back there now. Can you start me at 47 here? Hey, come on, sit up. Sit up.
20 to 41, is it your prisoner that's unconscious or the driver of the car you saw?
My prisoner. Sit up.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't know if she's faking it or what, but she's not answering me. Wake up. Hey, wake up.
Okay. So that was the video from the police, like the full video, the police cam, everything. Possibly the kid's phone. I think a lot of people didn't read the article because a lot of people were saying things. It's like if you read the article, there's actually a lot more to this story than what you see on those body cams and what's delivered there. So I'll talk about what's in the article, and I'll talk about my thoughts. But here's the video of the guy giving his 2 cents on the situation right now.
I can't give enough trigger warnings for this. Woman went to an emergency room because she was having a medical emergency, and I'm guessing her insurance wasn't great, so they told her to leave, and then she refused to leave because she was having a medical emergency, so they called the police.
They want you gone. I'm talking. I understand you say you got some problems going on. You're going to have to find a way to get out of here, okay? I don't want this to turn into a situation where you have to go to jail.
Shattered my ankle, and I had a stroke.
Well, if the medical professionals have saw you and discharged you,
They want
I got nothing to do with that then, but you got to get going.
I can't even get down here.
So you're saying that you're going to go to jail?
Oh my God.
You're gonna have to get up there because we're gonna have to physically put you up there if not.
Oh my God. I can't. You're going to break
Yes, ma'am. You're gonna have to get
my
up there.
ankle. I can't breathe.
You've been medically cleared, ma'am. This is not gonna work.
I'm going to pass out.
No, stop. Okay, it's not working. Okay, just stop. Get in the deck. Right here.
Okay.
Now you're starting to piss me off. Get up.
This is all a act. She has been discharged.
No, I'm going to pass out.
You're not going to pass out. We're going to get in there and pass out. We'll be done with it. Because this is all an act. You're not going back in the hospital. They're not taking you back. You've been kicked out of 2 hospitals.
Please.
What do you need your purse for?
My hand.
It's not in there.
I know an inhaler in your purse.
You guys can't do this to me.
The problem with me is that I know it's all an act.
Oh, well, we all know that.
I was kind of thinking, just put it on the sidewalk and I'll wipe blanket over and everybody can go about their day.
Please help me out. Sir, please. You're going to kill me. Please. I beg you. Okay. Now shut up.
You can set yourself up.
They're going to kill me. I can't breathe.
You're fine back there. Stop it.
Take me to the
What's going
hospital.
with you today? You're fine. No, she's not responding back there now. Can you start me at 47 emergency, please? Hey, come on, sit up. Sit up.
When the ambulance arrived, it found that she was dead from a stroke. The woman's daughter was a nurse. She said if you watch the full video, it doesn't take someone with medical training to know that there's something wrong. Her speech changes. She can't breathe. Police should have known something was wrong, but they just kept relying on, you've been medically discharged. What's happening to those officers? Since the videos come out, people are outraged. Before that, the DA said no charges. I mean, her son said if I treated someone that way, I'd be in prison right now. And he's not wrong. At least the DA had to sit with her daughter and watch her mother slowly die in an hour and 16 minutes of body cam footage. The woman needed help and was failed by everyone, and she deserved better.
Okay. So now that we've seen that, there's a ton of comments that I could go over. So I think the first thing I really want to do is I want to talk about what was in the actual article. And I will have I will have the links to articles on this in the description. So this is what the article says from Knoxville, Tennessee. A woman who had become unresponsive while in Knoxville Police custody Sunday morning has died, according to Knoxville Police Department. In an update shared Tuesday morning, Knoxville Police said the woman, who has not been identified, died at an area hospital Monday evening. She was identified as 60-year-old Lisa Edwards by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. At the request of District Attorney General Charm Allen and per standard department operating procedure, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation will investigate the in-custody death, Knoxville Police said Tuesday. Knoxville police officers and a transportation driver were placed on administrative leave after Edwards became unresponsive while being taken to jail on Sunday. According to Knoxville Police Department spokesperson Scott Erland. Let me see if I can get you guys in on this. Here we go. So Scott Erland. Erland said the officers responded to Fort Sanders Regional Medical Center around 7:40 a.m. after Edwards, who had been discharged, refused to leave an emergency room. Officers put Edwards in the cruiser to take her to Roger D. Wilson Detention Facility to be booked on trespassing charges. According to Erland, she was not handcuffed and no force was used. Well, we saw in the video that's not true. It was not clear how long Edwards was in the police car when officers noticed she became unresponsive. When she was taken to the hospital Sunday, she had been listed in critical condition. Fort Sanders Regional Medical Center released a statement Tuesday stating patient care and privacy are the highest importance at Fort Sanders Regional. We cannot share specific details of the patient's care, but we want to extend our deepest sympathy to the family and their loss. Well, that's interesting because they're the ones who discharged her. And they're the ones who called the police on her for trespassing. We are continuing to gather information and are cooperating with local law enforcement in their investigation. Internal Affairs Unit with the Knoxville Police Department will conduct an internal administrative review to determine if any policies or procedures were violated. See, this is interesting. This is already changed, and that irritates me because there is more to this story. Maybe it's in this one from Knox News, actually from Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's see if this one. Nope, that's not it either. That's interesting. Because there were more details released about this than what I'm reading now. So I'm not seeing the news article where they talked about what led up to this, which is extremely annoying. I actually have a screenshot of part of the original post. So so this is extra funny, and this I can show you. So Edwards was taken by paramedics to Blount Memorial Hospital after the... See, this is what I'm talking about. They don't talk about this. So this woman originally lived in Rhode Island, and it's in assisted living care. To my understanding, this is what I read before. She lived in Rhode Island under assisted living care. The assisted living people help her pack, and helped her find an assisted living place in Tennessee. She wanted to move to Tennessee so that she could be with her family, with her 2 kids. And she started complaining of the possibility of having a stroke while she was on the plane ride from Rhode Island to Tennessee. When she landed, they went to one hospital, and she was discharged from that hospital. She went to the second hospital, which they watched, or they observed her overnight, and then released her. So we don't know what observed overnight means. We don't know, did they just hook her up to a machine? Her heart stayed normal and they said, okay, goodbye. Did somebody just sit out in the hallway? Why didn't they run any tests? She was complaining about a lot of things. She was complaining about breathing problems. She was saying she thinks she's having a stroke. She said that she had a broken ankle. She clearly couldn't walk. She couldn't stand. So, you know, what did they, when they were observing her overnight, what exactly did they not observe that, you know, because obviously there was something wrong with her. She died in the backseat of a police car, you know, and there's stuff I will say about the police on that. But right now we're talking about the hospital's culpability in this. So the moment she gets off the plane, she's already gone to a hospital, discharged from there, goes to another hospital, is observed overnight. We don't know what observed overnight means. We don't know, like, why didn't they do an x-ray on her ankle? Because if she had, like, some kind of damage with her, there's several types of damage that can occur in the ankle that could actually cause blood clots to form, and those blood clots can cause, guess what? Strokes. And according to the medical examiner, they concluded, well, yeah, she died of a stroke. So, you know, what didn't they observe? Why did they... And it's not normal to be, after you're discharged from a hospital and you're waiting for your ride or whatever, to have the police called on you and removed for trespassing. That's not very normal. It's also very common that when you're released from the hospital, that they, like, even if you can walk, they insist on pushing you in a wheelchair out to your ride for legal liability purposes. But this says Edwards was taken by paramedics to Blount Memorial Hospital after the flight, where she was evaluated and discharged according to the TBI's investigation. The district attorney's office said she sought additional treatment at Fort Sanders Regional Medical Center, where she was observed overnight before she was released early the next morning. When Edwards refused to leave, security guards issued her a warning for disruptive behavior for trespassing, and then called Knoxville Police Department, who then came and arrested her. So if you don't read that in the article, you know, I find that really interesting, because that was a screenshot from what I initially read in the article that doesn't seem to be there anymore for some reason. So, yeah, that the hospital does have culpability, because she, like, to say that, you know, oh, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you, you're discharged, get the fuck out of here. Clearly there was something wrong with her. Clearly there was. She died. How can you sit there and say there's nothing wrong, we observed nothing wrong, but then died 20 minutes later in the back of a cop car from a stroke? You know, what the fuck? What do you mean there's nothing wrong with her? She's sitting there complaining about a broken ankle. Did they do x-rays? Did they do MRIs? Did they do CAT scans? Did they evaluate to see if her ankle was actually broken? Did they actually look to see if there was a blood clot that could cause a stroke? Did they do any of that? Anything to find out what was wrong with her? Maybe it wasn't a broken ankle. Maybe it was a torn tendon. Who knows? Like, I mean, she doesn't know if it was broken or not. All she knows, it feels like it's broken, but what's actually going on? Is there a blood clot? What could be there that would display symptoms of a stroke and actually lead up to a stroke? So something was there that they didn't see. So why did they discharge her? What's going on? And why are we seeing a repetition of this? This isn't the only case of somebody with chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic pain, seeking emergency medical care and being discharged. Sometimes they're discharged for drug-seeking behavior. Sometimes they're discharged for trespassing. There was actually another woman I talked to, and I believe I have the screenshot of that as well. She was... Is it this one? Here we go. So here's another example of this. I was taken to a hospital post-spinal... I left her name out for privacy purposes. I was taken to a hospital post-spinal surgery by an ambulance. The ER refused to see me as, quote, I was seeking pain medication, end quote, and refused to help me even stand to leave. My mom took me to my surgeon, who took one look at the site and the red streaks up my spine and booked an OR-1. So booked her for operation pretty much immediately. But, you know, like not everyone who's getting discharged from the hospital goes and dies. Some of these people are going to their primary care physicians, they're going to the orthopedic specialists, they're going to their pain management specialists, they're going to other specialists that look at the same thing that the hospital discharged them for, going, yeah, this is a medical emergency, and taking care of it themselves. But that's what the ER is supposed to be for, and, you know, they do nothing and give you a Tylenol pill and slap you with, like, a $30,000 bill. And this is the CDC's continuity of care speech, by the way, is that, like, if your PCP can't treat your pain anymore, the speech they give you is that, well, if your condition gets worse, if you have a flare-up, if you have a medical problem, report to urgent care or ER. And then the ER does this shit to you. They say that you're drug seeking. They try to get you for trespassing. They try to kick you out. They don't want to see you. They don't want to treat you. And they will kick you out. They will. And like I said, it's not the first case we've seen of this. So absolutely, yeah, this is a continuing trend of hospitals where they're kicking patients out who have very real medical emergencies. Yeah, I get to talk to the ones who live, but I've also seen plenty of examples of the ones who, like, a week later or the same day or within the month, they die. Because their emergency was not handled. It was not treated at the ER like it should have been. This is a continuing trend. This isn't the only example. This is just the first one I've seen that's hit media. That's it. So yeah, I think that there is culpability in the hospitals. I think the hospitals are trying to stray away from anyone who has any sort of pain. I think that's because they don't want to treat with controlled substances. It's too much risk, too much liability. And because of this, like because of the CDC guidelines and everything, and all the doctors that have been arrested, et cetera, I think it's become too much of a liability to try and treat people who are in pain, and they do everything in their power to not. I think that's part of the problem. People have said to me, well, she didn't have health care. If she was living in assisted living care in Rhode Island and moving to assisted living care in Tennessee, I'm pretty sure she was probably on retirement SSI and disability SSDI, which means she probably had Medicare for retirement and disabled people. So she had insurance. That would mean she would have insurance, but that shouldn't matter when it comes to the ER. The ER is supposed to treat you for medical emergencies no matter what, whether you have insurance or not. Like I said, homeless people go to the ER for medical treatment because it's the only place that'll fucking take them. We send hardened criminals to the ER for medical emergencies that happen in prison. So no, what do you mean she didn't? Whether she had insurance or not is irrelevant. They're supposed to treat her. They were supposed to make it so that 20 minutes after she was released, she didn't die. She didn't have to die. They could have absolutely fixed this, and they didn't. So yes, the hospital has culpability here. Now let's talk about the police. A lot of people think the police are entirely culpable. I do think that the police are culpable in this. I think that the way that they handled this situation was completely fucked up. I mean, you saw the video. You saw the things they were saying to her. Think about this. That was that woman's last moments on this earth, were being doubted, harassed, and handled very aggressively. You can't tell me they weren't handling her aggressively. You saw the fucking video. They were handling her very aggressively. And a woman that old that came from assisted living, you're going to tell me that's not rough and aggressive? She couldn't even stand. She couldn't fucking walk. Yeah, that's handling her aggressively. That's ridiculous. So this is one of the things that we're supposed to have a legal system that presumes innocence until proven guilty. In fact, in the video that I uploaded on my Facebook of the sickle cell woman, the police were still pretty fucked up there, but they were actually more willing to help the patient in that situation. They were giving her phone numbers to the hospital administrator, lawyers, attorneys, people that she could call to press charges and hold the people who were calling them on her for trespassing to kick her out and not treating her medical emergency. And people were still mad at the police for that. These police officers, they were saying, like, she started complaining, like, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Give me my inhaler. And they're like, oh, you're faking it. You don't have an inhaler. What are you talking about? Blah, 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 blah. And then moments later, like, oh, here's her inhaler in the purse. It's like, so you doubted her on the inhaler. You said she was faking. Then you find it. So, no, she wasn't faking. You accused her of faking and then later found out, no, she actually, and that inhaler you can see on the video has a prescription label on it. That's a prescription inhaler. They don't just hand those out. You have to have a prescription for it, which says to me, this woman probably has a history of a respiratory condition where she needs an inhaler. Might even, at the assisted living care, might even be on an oxygen tank. Oh, yeah. So why are they not believing? And putting her on her back would make it harder for her to breathe. The police may not know that, but that is true. So the police fucked up there by making an assumption instead of actually going through the person, finding her inhaler and helping her breathe. Yeah, this is, like I said, this is not a hardened criminal. This is a 60-year-old woman that's trying to desperately get medical care because she feels like she's dying. She keeps saying, my ankle's broken, I can't breathe, I'm having a stroke, you're gonna kill me, you're gonna kill me. So here's the other thing, is that they're sitting there saying, you're faking it, you're not having a stroke, there's nothing wrong with you, they discharged you. Again, hospital culpability. The police wouldn't be thinking there was nothing wrong with her if the police didn't fucking, or if the hospital didn't fucking discharge her in the first fucking place. But they did, so the police are going with what the hospital said, and they're making the assumption that the patient is wrong, the hospital's right, and this is why they're kicking her out. And nobody wants to believe the hospital could be capable of doing something like this to a patient. But I'm telling you, I've seen it many, many times. This is not the first. And that thing that I read of that other woman's experience, that's not the only one. The sickle cell person isn't the only one. I've seen this happen to tons of patients. Tons. And I've even talked to a psychiatrist, and he told me he's aware of this stuff, and he said it's getting worse, and it's going to get even worse. Okay? This whole kicking patients out of the ER with very real medical emergencies. So the cops are sitting there doubting her on that, and then she ends up dying 20 minutes later in the backseat of the police car. That's her final moments in life, is being demeaned, cussed at, degraded, doubted, told that she's full of shit, being roughhoused, mistreated, thrown into the back of a cop car while she's struggling to breathe. She's in pain. She feels like she's about ready to die. And they're all like, oh, baloney, and then does die in the back of the cop car. I think in this situation, the police should not have been so rough and aggressive. They shouldn't have been so quick to assume guilt over innocence. I think they should have been more presumptuous of innocence instead of guilty. And maybe helped her find a hospital that would actually treat her if she could have made the fucking car ride. So, yeah, I think the police are culpable in this as well, because I don't think the way that they handled this is how police are supposed to handle a situation like this. There was no need to treat her like, like she was some roughneck off the street that deals and peddles drugs and robs liquor stores. This is a 60-year-old woman that came from assisted living, that was just that was released from the hospital without being treated with a medical emergency. So, my position is that both the police and the hospital are culpable. And I made some posts about this that I was going to read. So the first post that I made in regards to this one was, all right, I'm getting so fed up. We cannot treat the chronically ill and chronic pain patients and the disabled this way. I keep getting told, quote, that stuff isn't happening, unquote, yet here it is with a pending lawsuit. And yes, I believe the kids are trying to do a lawsuit against the police department, and I think that they were going to try and do it on the hospital, but I think the hospital is trying to do damage control to keep them from doing that. The thing is, too, I've only posted a very small select few examples of this happening. I've seen more than what I've posted on Facebook. I've also heard voice messages of pure terror, agony, and desperation almost every day for the past 3 or 4 years from people calling for a pain advocate. Last time I posted something like this, someone said, we don't know the full story. Why did they get kicked out? You know what? I don't really care what the excuse is. There's no excuse to kick someone out of a hospital who's just had a stroke and a broken ankle. We should not be denying people emergency medical care. We give this to hardened criminals, for fuck's sake. There's no excuse whatsoever. They have ways of sedating a patient who's out of control, and they can have the police on standby for when the hospital is done. They do this all the time. There's absolutely no excuse for this at all. This woman did not need to die. She could have been saved and taken to jail afterwards if that was really necessary. The thing is, we've seen this happen in the Don't Punish Pain, in the documentation for patients with non-fatal conditions. 99% of the time, that's not an actual statistic, that is just guesstimating. 99% of the time, the reason they get discharged without treatment because they are chronic pain patients that have or used to have opiate or opioid medications prescribed to them and automatically accused of drug-seeking behavior. That's it. Notice in the video, quote, you don't have asthma, you don't have an inhaler, end quote. Then later they find an inhaler in the purse. She didn't lie. Notice in the video, quote unquote, you've been discharged, you're not having a stroke, you're not dying, you're faking it. Then what happened? She fucking died in the back of the police car before she even got to the police station. The video was from a Tennessean journalist vendor, The video has the cops' body cams, and it might contain some cell phone footage from the family members. I'm not entirely sure on that one, but it definitely has body cam footage from the police. You cannot tell me this isn't real. I know we all like confirmation bias, and we all want to pretend the U.S. isn't capable of making such human right violations. But you all need to wake up because it's happening, and they are capable of it. Thinking, quote unquote, this is the United States, that can't happen here, is called American exceptionalism. This is real. It has and continues to happen. The lawsuit against the local police force, as well as the 2 hospitals that discharged someone who was having a stroke, broken ankle, and an asthma attack, if it was indeed an asthma attack, it could have been some other kind of respiratory ailment, and was denied emergency medical care. Maybe this has not been your personal experience, but we need to fight it so it doesn't become your personal or your experience, or become the norm. What they did is a violation of the Hippocratic Oath. The ER is supposed to be the one place you can go for medical emergencies regardless of your social status. The torturing of chronic pain patients, disabled, and the chronically ill needs to stop. It's social Darwinism, it's a human right violation, and as a Western nation, better is expected out of us than this. And this is the second post I posted on my Facebook where I says, news report both aired on local TV station and published a news article online. ABC Channel 6 simply states, quote unquote, she was discharged. But they did not say why. This is a very relevant question that is kind of important to the story here. Yeah, that's one thing that was really fucking with me. They discharged her, but they don't give the reason. They don't say why she was discharged or for what reason. They don't say. They just like, oh, she was held overnight. We observed her overnight. Then we discharged her. Okay, why did you discharge her? On what basis did you discharge her? What did you not see? What did you see that led you to the conclusion that this woman who died of a medical emergency didn't have a medical emergency? That's a pretty big oopsie, don't you think? Considering she knew something was wrong with her. I mean, obviously she died. She obviously died of a stroke, and there are warning signs of strokes. The second hospital observed her overnight before discharging her, but do not mention why she's discharged from either hospital. You can't say, quote unquote, because there were no signs of anything wrong. She died. She had a broken ankle, respiratory problems, and clear signs of a medical emergency. So no, there were signs there was something wrong. Why did they discharge her? Seriously, I want to know. Why did they discharge her? What led them to the conclusion everything was fine? Don't think I'm letting the police slide on how they handled that either. The police do not need to be making assumptions of guilt before innocence. The last moments of that woman's life shouldn't have been blatant mockery and doubt of the thing that was literally killing her in that moment. Basically, her final hours were of her being bullied by police while forcefully restrained, mocked, and doubted in the back of a police car instead of in a hospital bed with her kids hooked up to morphine drip, which is what should have happened in the case that she was dying. Now, obviously, they could have stopped the stroke and she'd still be alive today, but if they absolutely couldn't save her, the best way to die would be in a bed on a morphine drip with her kids. But I mean, really, if they would have treated the problem, she wouldn't have died. She'd still be alive. So then here's a third post that I made, taken from a conversation with another chronic pain patient advocate / activist. I tried telling this guy on that thread, while yes, I think the police in this instance did not handle the situation very well. For some reason, they didn't want to entertain the idea that the hospital has some or any responsibility. A lot of the people are solely looking at the cops, to the point of conspiracy theories that the cops poisoned her. The police did the police did too much assuming of guilt before innocence. I do consider that. I don't think the police poisoned her. They did too much assuming of guilt before innocence. They were also way too aggressive for an elderly woman with so many health problems. She was obviously not a threat. The person I was talking to thinks the cops killed her by denying her access to her inhaler, which eventually they proved themselves wrong by finding her inhaler in her purse and gave it to her. They did give her the inhaler. Anyways, this guy was saying she died because she wasn't given her inhaler, put in the cop car, and thus couldn't breathe and died from lack of oxygen. All the cops' fault. I kept asking him, then why did the hospital discharge her? He kept ignoring that part and was saying she got discharged because she was cleared for good health, and if the police weren't so cruel, they would have taken her back and she'd be alive. Okay, again, I don't think that's the case. In her, okay, I had a typo here. And discharge, it's extremely unusual to be discharged and have the cops called on you. Also, most hospitals won't let you walk. They insist that the patient gets escorted by wheelchair to their ride, even if they can walk for legal liability reasons. That's my personal experience after having surgery myself. Also, it was the hospital that called the police on her in the first place, which was completely unnecessary. Like I said, the police were being way too aggressive and rough with her. We are supposed to assume innocence over guilt in our legal system, to which the police did not do. Her final moments were of her being harassed, outed, and mishandled before being restrained and subdued in the back of a cop car where she died. So absolutely, I don't think the cops handled that well, but they are not solely to blame. As I said earlier, the hospital called the police on her in the first place. According to the medical examiner, she died from a stroke, which is what she was complaining about. That and a broken ankle. Now, this guy was telling me that the medical examiner said she died from a stroke because they were trying to cover up for their police friend, and that she had actually died from respiratory suppression, basically, that she couldn't breathe. That basically she suffocated to death because she didn't get her inhaler. I find that hard to believe. I think she did die of a stroke. That's what she was complaining about initially on the flight from Rhode Island to Tennessee in the first place. That's why she went to the first hospital that discharged her. It's why she got sent to the second hospital that watched her overnight and discharged her. It's what she was initially complaining about to the police. I'm having a stroke, I'm having a stroke, I'm having a stroke. So, no, I don't buy that. I don't buy that the medical examiner said, oh, she died of a stroke, even though she died from... maybe that all led to it. You know, maybe it was a compilation of it all. But I believe that it was a stroke. And maybe it was a stroke that was led on by her ankle being messed up, that had a blood clot that led to a panic attack that triggered her respiratory issue and caused her to start suffocating and hyperventilating and struggling to breathe, and then finally gave in to the stroke and died. That's possible. Now, at some point, she stated she couldn't breathe and asked for her inhaler. Being that she had a prescription inhaler says she had respiratory issues for a long time and didn't seem to be the woman's primary concern. The stroke was. According to the guy who was arguing with me, quote, unquote, the police and medical examiner worked together to cover up their cop buddies' mess-ups. I think that that's conspiratorial. Maybe that's an ACAB position. I'm not sure. But I don't particularly care for the police, but I don't think that's the case. I think she died of a stroke. That's what she was complaining about the whole time. But anyway, we have seen examples of that, but not very often, and usually comes to light eventually, because the family can order their own autopsy. My family did this with my little brother when he died. So, like, if the medical examiner was wrong on the stroke thing, the family can order their own autopsy or medical examination from someone else that they want to. And absolutely, you can do that. So that would be a bad decision on medical examiner to, cover for his buddy, because if another person comes in to examine the body or do an autopsy and they find out that it wasn't a stroke, that it was something else, that they're in big trouble. They're in deep shit. It wouldn't be worth the risk. That just seems like conspiracism, or they hate cops, which I do too, by the way, but I'm not gonna go that far. So much they refused to think anyone else was culpable. I asked if I was the only one who actually read the articles. That woman lived in assisted living in Rhode Island. The assisted living people helped her pack, find a plane, and helped her find an assisted living center down in Tennessee. She moved from Rhode Island to Tennessee to be with her 2 kids. She started complaining of a stroke while on the plane to Tennessee. When she got off the plane, her kids took her to the first hospital, which discharged her immediately. Then they went to the second hospital that watched her overnight, which we don't know what all that entails because no details were given on that. The next day, she was discharged, but we don't know why she was discharged to the point of having the cops called. So that's a pretty extreme reaction. You're out in a wheelchair, you can't walk, you're having some medical emergencies, and the police, or the fucking hospital calls the fucking police on you. It's pretty, on a 60-year-old fucking woman that came from assisted living care. They have access to her medical records, they know that. They do not say in the article or in front of the cop's body cam as to why and for what reason she was being discharged. The guy arguing with me said, quote unquote, because she was cleared with relatively good health. Well, that's an assumption. We don't actually know that because it's not in the article or video. God damn it. They don't ever fucking say it. They do not say, it's not mentioned anywhere, why and for what reason she was discharged. Saying the hospital wouldn't discharge someone who needs emergency medical care is an assumption as well. We've seen that in the chronic pain community. I don't want to make an assumption on this either and say the hospital discharged her for drug seeking based off of the many, many stories we see and hear in the doctor-patient forum or Don't Punish Pain, in the chronic pain community in general. We need to be accurate and intellectually honest, even though that it is most likely what happened. So the problem is we are missing a vital piece of information, and that is why or what reason did the hospital discharge her? Unfortunately, there's only a small amount of people that actually have that answer. The patient does, but she's dead. The kids might, but can we get a hold of them? The hospital staff does, especially those involved in discharging her, but what is the likelihood of them being forthcoming, especially if they did it because of the opiate epidemic, fear-mongering, and discharge her for drug-seeking behavior? I really doubt they're going to be honest about that. The other thing that gets brought up that makes no sense to me is they think the ER did this due to lack of insurance. As far as I know, if you're living in assisted living care, in an assisted living care facility, you're going to be on SSI/SSDI and have access to Medicare/Medicaid, which is what pays for it, which would mean she has insurance. The other thing I find of interest is the complaint about her ankle, a broken ankle, fracture, torn tendon. We don't know what it was, and neither does anyone else, except maybe the medical examiner. Internal damage isn't something easily diagnosed without an X-ray, MRI, or something to look inside the body and actually see what's wrong. So even if the woman didn't know, what she did know is that it felt like her ankle was broken. And we always believe the patient until we can get an accurate diagnosis. That is something I find suspicious on the hospital's part. Did they not take a simple X-ray to see what was wrong with her ankle or anything? Why didn't they do that? The thing is, broken, shattered, or fractured ankles can create blood clots, and blood clots can cause strokes. It very well may be that her ankle was the cause of her stroke. It also could be her stroke caused a fall, which twisted her ankle. We really need to know why and for what reason she was discharged and why they called the cops on her in the first place. We really should be asking what they observed overnight, as well as why did they not even investigate her ankle or stroke complaints while being observed overnight in the hospital. She was only in the back of that police car for 20 minutes. She died pretty quick upon discharge. I agree, the police were extra shitty to her, but it's hard to point the blame solely on the cops. Let's say the cops were nicer, more compassionate police instead, and insisted she get medical attention. The hospital discharged her and called the cops to kick her off the premises. What would lead me to believe they would have taken her back? They would have had to find a completely different hospital yet again. Now we also know they would have had to have done this within 20 minutes before she died from her stroke. Sad, people aren't going to believe the hospital probably had more culpability than most would be comfortable with. That our healthcare system has fallen that far down the drain. People won't see it until it happens to them, unfortunately. Whew. And then the other thing that I also had to say on this was this. I tried telling this guy on that thread that while yes, I think the police in this instance did not handle the situation very well, for some reason they didn't want to entertain the idea that the hospital has some or any responsibility. A lot of the people are solely looking at the cops to the point of conspiracy theories. That the cops poisoned her. The police did too much assuming of guilt before innocence. They were also way too aggressive for an elderly woman with so many health problems. She was obviously not a threat. The person I was talking to thinks the cops killed her by denying her access to her inhaler, which eventually they proved themselves wrong by finding her inhaler in her purse. I think I covered over the basis of all this. So, yeah, to recap, I mean, that's the big thing, is that it's really bizarre, like, Did they do anything to, like, there's no information provided on this. Did the hospital examine the ankle? Did they examine the initial complaint of the stroke, which she was complaining about on the plane ride from Rhode Island to Tennessee? The moment she landed, she goes to the first, I'm having a stroke, I'm having a stroke. She goes to the second hospital that watched her overnight, I'm having a stroke, I'm having a stroke. Did they not investigate any of this? Did they not investigate the complaint of a broken ankle? Yeah, what did they do? What exactly? These questions are not answered. It's not in the police body cams. It's not in the article. It's not answered at all. What basis did they release her on then? Or did they discharge her on? Why did they give her a, relatively okay bill of health? Why? What test did they do? I'm really curious. I want to know. I want to know why they discharged her. I want to know why and for what reason. I want to know why they didn't investigate the ankle. I want to know that. So, yeah, I think the hospital is culpable on those counts. And, let's say that the cops, it is all the cops, and that they're the ones that killed her. It's like, okay, let's say that the cops were nice people, that they were, good cops, pretty cops, so sweet, so nice. Okay, so why, they're going to turn around and take the woman back into the hospital that's trying to call them for trespassing to kick her off the premises because they discharged her because they think nothing is wrong with her. So like I pointed out in that, they would have to find another hospital within 20 minutes because based on the police footage, she died within 20 minutes. What's the probability of that? Like, if they couldn't get her to the police station in time, what's the probability of them getting her to another hospital within 20 minutes before she died? Good questions, I think. I hear that. Well, I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, I think kids and the hospital staff are the only ones that know that, and of course, the woman who is dead. But she can't speak because she's dead. So hopefully, the kids, the family members, will speak out on this, that they'll be able to answer these questions, and I won't be shocked if they say, no, they didn't do any x-rays, no, they didn't do any MRIs, no, they didn't investigate her ankle, no, they didn't investigate the claim of her stroke, they did no tests to find out if that was a thing, they just watched her overnight, monitored her blood pressure and pulse, and said, okay, you're still alive, get out, and then called the police. So yeah, I think the hospital and the police are both culpable, and I hope they sue both. I hope they sue both. Because this can't be the norm. I don't want this to happen to anyone that's watching this. I don't want it to become the norm and start happening to everyone in the United States. That if you have a heart attack, well, you're fucked. I don't want that to be America, okay? I don't. So, let me know what you think in the comments section below. I'll have links in the description. Sorry, that's what I cover on this channel. It's dark. I have a dark channel. I cover dark subject matter, so. I don't want to cover it, if I don't think that's a very goth, nihilist sort of thing to do, to cover light and fluffy things, is it? No, it's dark. So like, share, subscribe. Tell me what you think in the comments, and with that, out.